Greenland. We're going to have all military access that we want. We're going to be able to put what we need on Greenland because we want it. We're talking about national security and international security. So we're going to not have to pay anything other than the fact that we are building the Golden Dome, and the Golden Dome is going to be something that's going to be very amazing. It'll be Israel times probably 100. And we need it. I think we need it. And it's all going to be made in the United States.
Trump just secured total access to Greenland with no time limit, and NATO allies are scrambling to respond. This isn't just about an island. This is about who controls the Arctic, and the entire Western alliance just got shaken to its core. Here's what actually happened. On January 22nd, President Donald Trump announced from Air Force One that he had secured what he called total and permanent U.S. access to Greenland through a deal framework with NATO. Let me be clear about what Trump said, in his own words to Fox Business Network. Total access. There's no end, there's no time limit. But here's where it gets complicated. Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, told reporters in Nuuk that same day, "I don't know what there is in the agreement or the deal about my country." Think about that for a moment. A deal was announced about Greenland, and Greenland's own leader doesn't know what's in it. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte confirmed discussions are underway, stating he expects details to be worked out by early 2026. But Denmark, which holds sovereignty over Greenland, insists that sovereignty is not up for discussion. So what actually happened in Davos? And why does this matter to you, regardless of where you live? According to Reuters sources familiar with the matter, here's what we know concretely. First, Trump and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte agreed to further talks between the United States, Denmark, and Greenland about updating the 1951 agreement that currently governs U.S. military access to the Arctic island. That 1951 agreement already gives the U.S. the right to construct military bases in Greenland and move freely in Greenlandic territory, as long as Denmark and Greenland are informed. The U.S. currently operates a base at Pituffik in northern Greenland. Second, the framework discussed includes prohibiting Chinese and Russian investment in Greenland. Third, Trump wants what he calls a Golden Dome missile defense system in the Arctic. Fourth, access to Greenland's critical minerals is on the table. Now, Professor Mark Jacobson from the Royal Danish Defence College provided crucial context. The US had 17 bases during the Cold War and much greater activity. So that is already possible now under the current agreement. This raises the question, if the US already has extensive access under the 1951 agreement, what exactly is Trump seeking that's new? Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen was explicit about Greenland's position. "We are ready to discuss a lot of things, and we are ready to negotiate a better partnership, but sovereignty is a red line." He continued, "We cannot cross the red lines. We have to respect our territorial integrity. We have to respect international law and sovereignty." Reports suggest Trump was seeking control of areas around U.S. military bases in Greenland as part of the wider deal. Trump himself skirted questions about sovereignty but said, "We have to have the ability to do exactly what we want to do." Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen confirmed that no negotiations have been held with NATO regarding the sovereignty of Greenland. She called it still a difficult and serious situation, but noted progress in getting discussions focused on promoting common security in the Arctic region. She's now calling for a permanent presence of NATO in the Arctic region, including around Greenland. Here's a critical point. Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, but it's not fully independent. Denmark handles its foreign affairs and defense. But Greenlanders themselves have been moving toward greater autonomy, and many eventually want full independence. This creates a complex three-way dynamic between what the US wants, what Denmark agrees to, and what Greenlanders themselves will accept. Let me explain why this isn't just a territorial dispute, but a fundamental shift in global power dynamics. Climate change has made the Arctic accessible. Melting ice is opening new shipping routes and making previously unreachable resources accessible. The Northern Sea route along Russia's Arctic coast could reduce shipping time between Asia and Europe by up to 40% compared to the Suez Canal route. Greenland has critical minerals essential for modern technology. We're talking about rare earth elements needed for smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and military technology. Currently, China dominates global rare earth production. Greenland represents a potential alternative source that Western nations desperately want access to. Military strategic positioning. Greenland sits between North America and Europe. It provides early warning capabilities for missile defense. It offers surveillance positions over the Arctic Ocean. During the Cold War, the US operated 17 bases there. The current Pituffik base is crucial for tracking missiles and satellites. Russia and China are expanding Arctic presence. Russia has been militarizing its Arctic coastline, reopening Cold War-era bases. China has declared itself a near-Arctic state, despite being nowhere near the Arctic, and has been investing in Arctic infrastructure and research. NATO Secretary General Rutte explicitly stated that allies need to step up their commitment to Arctic security to ward off threats from Russia and China. Finnish President Alexander Stubb said he hoped allies could put together a plan to boost Arctic security by the NATO summit in Ankara in July. The framework discussed between Trump and Rutte specifically calls for prohibiting Chinese and Russian investments in Greenland. This is about controlling one of the last frontiers on Earth before it becomes dominated by adversarial powers. This Greenland episode nearly tore apart the Western alliance. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas stated that the bloc's US relations had taken a big blow in the past week. This prompted an emergency summit of EU leaders. Before the Davos announcement, Trump had threatened tariffs against Europe and had not ruled out taking Greenland by force. That threat alone represented what Reuters called brewing to be the biggest rupture in transatlantic ties in decades. Think about that language. Biggest rupture in decades. NATO has held together through the Cold War, the fall of the Soviet Union, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and countless other crises. But Trump's approach to Greenland threatened to blow it apart. The European Parliament had suspended work on a trade deal with the United States because of Trump's threats. After Trump backed off the tariff threats and ruled out taking Greenland by force, the Parliament president said the EU would likely resume work on the deal. But here's what's changed. Reuters reports that EU diplomats say leaders will rethink US relations because the Greenland episode has badly shaken confidence in transatlantic ties. Governments remain wary of another change of mind by Trump, who is increasingly seen, in the words of these diplomats, as a bully whom Europe will have to stand up to. Kallas put it this way: disagreements that allies have between them, like Europe and America, are just benefiting our adversaries, who are looking and enjoying the view. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer told Rutte that the UK stood ready to play its full part in ensuring security in the Arctic. What we're witnessing is European nations simultaneously trying to accommodate US security demands while also preparing to assert more independence from American unpredictability. The markets tell their own story about the chaos and relief cycle. Trump's U-turn on tariffs and ruling out taking Greenland by force triggered a rebound in European markets and a return toward record highs for Wall Street's main indexes. But Reuters notes this also raised questions about how much damage had already been done to transatlantic ties and business confidence. Here's the economic reality. Uncertainty is expensive. When a US president threatens tariffs one day and backs off the next, threatens to take territory by force, and then announces a deal framework, businesses don't know how to plan. Investment decisions get delayed. Supply chains get reconsidered. Risk premiums increase. The fact that markets rebounded shows relief that the worst-case scenario was avoided, but the volatility itself has consequences. For anyone involved in international business, transatlantic trade, or investments tied to geopolitical stability, this episode demonstrates that the risk models need updating. What was considered stable, the NATO alliance, US respect for European sovereignty, predictable trade relations, can no longer be taken as given. Let's not forget, real people live in Greenland, about 57,000 of them. Pensioner Jesper Muller in Nuuk captured the mood. It's all very confusing. 1 hour we are, well, almost at war. Next hour everything is fine and beautiful, and I think it's very hard to imagine that you can build anything on it. That quote encapsulates the whiplash that Greenlanders experienced. Their home became the center of global attention, with talk of military expansion, territorial control, and great power competition. Prime Minister Nielsen welcomed Trump's comments, but maintained the firm line on sovereignty. He expressed readiness to discuss partnership improvements, but insisted on respecting territorial integrity and international law. This matters because Greenland's consent is essential for any meaningful agreement. Denmark may hold sovereignty, but Greenland has significant autonomy, and any deal that ignores Greenlandic concerns would face enormous implementation challenges. The independence movement in Greenland has been growing. Many Greenlanders want full independence from Denmark. They don't want to trade Danish oversight for American control. Any sustainable arrangement must work for Greenlanders themselves, not just for NATO capitals. Here's what we can expect based on the statements made. Immediate term. Continued discussions between the US, Denmark, and Greenland on updating the 1951 agreement. NATO Secretary General Rutte indicated he hopes this can be completed by early 2026. By July 2026, the NATO summit in Ankara, where Arctic security plans are expected to be presented. Ongoing, NATO's senior commanders working through details of extra security requirements for the Arctic region. Likely developments: increased NATO military presence in the Arctic, including around Greenland. Discussions about the Golden Dome missile defense system. Concrete talks about preventing Russian and Chinese investments in Greenland. Uncertain. The exact nature of enhanced US access beyond what's already permitted. How much control, if any, the US will gain over specific areas. How Greenland's sovereignty concerns will be addressed. Whether the arrangement will satisfy both US security demands and European concerns about American reliability. One source familiar with the matter said, "What was agreed is a frame on which to build," adding that anything being reported on specific details is speculative. This means we're still in the early stages. The framework exists, but the details that matter most remain to be negotiated. Let me give you the key points you need to understand. 1. The Arctic is becoming a major theater of great power competition. This will intensify, not diminish. If you work in defense, resources, shipping, or climate sectors, Arctic developments will increasingly affect your field. 2. NATO is adapting to focus more on Arctic security, specifically countering Russian and Chinese influence. This represents a geographic shift in alliance priorities. 3. The US-Europe relationship is under strain, but both sides are trying to manage it. European leaders are simultaneously accommodating US security concerns while preparing for American unpredictability. Watch for Europe developing more independent defense capabilities. 4. Sovereignty and territorial integrity remain red lines, even between allies. Greenland and Denmark have made clear that security cooperation is possible, but sovereignty is non-negotiable. 5. Resource security, particularly rare earth minerals, is driving strategic decision-making. Countries and companies are diversifying away from Chinese-dominated supply chains. 6. Market volatility around geopolitical announcements is the new normal. Build that into your planning if you're managing investments or business operations. 7. Local populations matter in geopolitical arrangements. Greenland's 57,000 people have a voice that cannot be ignored, even in great power negotiations. The Greenland Deal framework, announced on January 22nd, is not the end of a story. It's the beginning of a major realignment in how the Western Alliance approaches Arctic security, how allies negotiate with each other, and how resource competition shapes international relations. This affects global shipping routes, defense postures, technology supply chains, and the fundamental question of whether the NATO alliance can hold together under pressure. Stay informed. The Arctic is no longer a distant concern. It's becoming central to 21st century geopolitics, and what happens in Greenland will ripple across the world.